character creation. Dude, you've made a game where you can play somebody with a turnip instead of his head.
Sure.
What is that? How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, of course, jack-o'-lanterns are normally a monster, aren't they, in role-playing games like RuneQuest? So, it's an iconic sort of figure, the big kind of hairy troll with a pumpkin or a turnip for a head. And I was trying to bring in these figures of fairy lore as playable options that are striking and iconic. And so you've got the tall humanoid spider that hides its many arms inside a long coat. And you've got the owl-headed sorcerers from this fairy realm and others. So yeah, you've got quite a menagerie there of odd character types, and the human character options can be pretty peculiar as well if you're playing some immortal champion with a tragedy in their background who's been recruited by the light.
I'm trying to find.
What makes it engaging, what makes it possible to play such oddities, I think, is partly the doom that's hanging over you that humanizes the Fey characters, because if you're playing the gigantic troll and your doom is that you're going to have your heart broken, it also means that going along the way you get immense bonuses anytime you form some sort of emotional or romantic relationship with characters in the story. So there's a mechanic there that pushes you to keep falling in love and to keep forming these affecting little relationships with sweet NPCs. But of course, one of them is going to break you one day. So the doom is the mechanic that makes these oddballs and monstrous creatures playable in the wider sense. But the other, of course, is that the game is quite structured in its scenarios. It's not a complete sandbox in which you have these characters and you wander off into the world and find what adventures you can. It's not like Vampire the Masquerade. Instead, each adventure has got a real pattern to it. You are summoned out of doing what you would otherwise be doing, and for humans that might be something mundane, but for turnip-headed trolls, they'll be abducting children or scaring old ladies or waging battles in the woods against gigantic spiders. And the light recruits you and takes you through time to this particular century. And a number of different centuries are explored in the setting part of the game, and sets you this cryptic mission called the Conundrum. You experience these visions that tells you what you need to do, and again, the game provides some helpful tables and rules for generating these conundrums and the scenarios that come out of them. So I'm reminded again, I'm inspired again by another old role-playing game called Whispering Vault. That had characters who were these unimaginable, strange alien demigods, but would travel through time to deal with a problem that existed in a particular human century. And so something like this is going on here. You're role playing these characters not so much in their everyday lives. That's been interrupted for them. You can have a bit of fun at the start, saying this is what my turnip-headed troll gets up to in his spare time, but that's about to be interrupted by the call of the light. And now we're going to go off to the 17th century to save a woman from being hanged as a witch, and then that becomes the storyline.
I have a question about the type of characters that you can create, because some of them are very obviously different species, like the bugbears, but then you also have warlocks.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to make a warlock a species that you can play rather than a character class that you can choose? So, for example, why couldn't you have a bugbear or a flake goblin is a warlock?
I suppose, well, warlocks in the game are in a rather special position. They're mortals who can use magic. And that requires some explanation because humans are not innately magical, and so they have they have a grimoire as the source of their spells. But this grimoire is intelligent and self-aware. Often it's an animal, but it could be a book in which writing appears, or a strange contraption, a machine that beeps and whirs and sends out messages. But whatever it is, it accompanies you. It sets you tasks. It's got its own perverse agenda. and even doing what it wants gets you the magical power. And I basically just didn't want humans to be these Gandalf Merlin sorcerers who could rise up through the ranks. Everything seems to come at a cost. I suppose if fans got in touch with me and said, could you devise a way of being a bugbear warlock, we could go to work on that. But of course, bugbears can use magic anyway. They're fae. They don't need
They're magical beings, yeah.
that sort of relationship, you know. So most of the fae characters, I think, with the exception of the spiders, the Tomnoddins have got well, not all of them have got the potential to be arcane and use magic. But the humans need to have some special reason why. You have heathen clerks who've entered into some worshipful relationship with the heathen saints of the Hedgerow, these sort of dimly personified spiritual forces. And they have, if you like, clerical magic from that. But the warlocks, they have full-on sorcery, but they have to negotiate for it all the time with their grimoire.
You mentioned earlier how characters are pretty unkillable. How do you achieve that and still make the game exciting and, you know, not leaving people be complacent because at the end of the day, our character is never going to die, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, you have a threat building up in the background all the time. The nemesis, you know, the dark is the cosmic opponent that is out to stop you. And at the beginning of an adventure, it's normally not very aware that you're there. And then as the adventure proceeds, it sort of gets a bead on you, it focuses, and then it starts directing its malice towards stopping you. And this is represented by the dark nemesis die getting larger and larger. And of course, if that maxes out, then you will lose the adventure. The dark will get to your objective before you do, and you failed. You know, so usually that's what you're struggling against is to win. It's not about yourself surviving, and even if you are vanquished, which is the worst possible outcome from a dreadfully botched kind of challenge, the light will normally pluck you away and return you in a future adventure. It's not going to abandon you to be chopped to pieces, unless that is your doom, you know. But of course, your departure will harm the group's mission, and anybody who's vanquished causes the nemesis die to advance one size larger just because that happened. So yeah, you're struggling against a timer almost. You've got so long to do this mission, and you've got to think carefully about taking rests and using your powers so recklessly. And that replaces the conventional role-play considerations of how do I stay alive. But of course, bad things can happen to you. You can be injured. You can suffer the diminution of your abilities, and you can be captured. I mean, when you fail in a challenge, ordinarily, the judge will say, "This is the challenge penalty." You get a kind of saving throw against that, and there will be things like being lost for a certain amount of time, being captured, being terribly injured. But then the story moves on. The assumption is nobody is straight up killed.
Okay. In terms of the doom that every character is meant to find, how do you handle that? Is there a number of game sessions or a specific amount of play time, or is it something by agreement with the judge?
You've got this dice, and it'll start as a D4. Your Doom dice is something you can roll whenever you want, so it's an incredibly useful die, and you'd be tempted to be throwing it into every situation. But if you ever roll your highest possible number on it, so if it's a D4 and you roll a 4, then it will get bigger. Then become a 6-sided die, or then an 8-sided die when you roll a 6. So using it recklessly makes it get bigger, which makes you get more powerful. But once it gets past a 12, if you roll a 12-sided Doom die and you roll a 12, then boom, your Doom is now at hand. So yeah, you can rush that. You can be, I'm going to use my Doom die for everything. And as it gets bigger, I get very, very powerful and can do, really quite amazing things with this. I'm rolling a D8, I'm rolling a D10 now. You can certainly have fun doing that, but your character will be short-lived. There's things you can do to make your Doom die smaller. The main thing is fulfilling oaths. Your characters, as they go through the adventure, will meet various people with problems, and by swearing an oath to these people to do something about it, you fulfill that oath. You can shrink your doom die again. So managing your doom die, I suppose, is the most significant bit of character sheet control that you do. You want your doom die big so that you can have fun making rolling big numbers, but you don't want it to get out of hand. And some things can suddenly force your doom trigger again will force it to grow if that circumstance comes about. A lovelorn bugbear, if some country dairymaid starts making very sweet eyes at him, then the doom die is just going to get one size bigger because that situation is his undoing.
But how do you have to use the doom die? Because it sounds like if you don't, then your character is safe forever.
You could, but things can, as I said, things can push it up without your meaning it to. You've got your doom trigger. If that occurs, it just gets bigger. The experience system has got a slightly random element to it. You get these rewards at the end of an adventure, and one of those rewards could just be your doom die gets bigger, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's you might think, great, that's a reward I really want. Or you might be rather disappointed. And so you could find it getting pushed up, even if you make a decision not to use it.
Okay. Right. Let's go into the third and last part of the interview, because it's about time that we talk about the world.